Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Friday, another 4 o'clock, and another Motor1.com test car happy hour. I am Seyth, Miersma, editor-in-chief of Motor One. Joining me today, Mr. Chris Smith, U.S. news editor for Motor One, and a bit of a pinch hitter today. It's always handy, Chris, I've found, to have a master podcaster just in your back pocket to pull off the bench when all of your other editors who are supposed to be on your podcast have fallen ill or are no longer available. Do you agree?
Who the hell is that?
It's you, sir.
What? No. Happy to jump in. I'm somewhat familiar with this recording stuff.
That's right. That's right. So just to let everybody know, not that it's a huge deal, but we are, to let you behind the curtain a little bit, Jeff Perez was supposed to be on talking with us. He is the one who has been driving the lovely Mercedes-AMG SL55 Roadster that we put on the cover image because we know it's such a cool car. It's so much fun. Unfortunately, Jeff is having just a massive allergy attack and was unable to look presentable and speak properly. So we're giving him a break, and Chris and I are going to chat about the last few cars that I've been driving as a result. So I say it every week, but more than ever, if you guys have questions or comments about any of the topics, we would absolutely love to have them and read them because we're just down a man. So we can start with Gary.
I will do my best to fill in and talk about the SL as if I've driven it, but I haven't.
I can't. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that we're just going to skip the SL entirely. I was telling the guys I had an SL Coupe mid last year, but well over 6 months ago, and it was one of those things where I had it for a night. I think Brandon was kind enough to leave it for me at the airport or something, but I barely drove it. So I would hate to bore everybody with my poor recollection of that Mercedes. But yeah, we've got other good stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah, lots of good stuff.
Let's chat with our good friend Gary Clark. Thank you for joining really quick, since he had a fun question before we even jump into the main topic. He says that, well, the thumbnail is not an EV because it's a convertible, or is it? Will Mercedes produce the first EV convertible? Stop. Then he asks us not to derail the podcast. Well, it's not derailing. It's the heart of it. I would only say, Gary, one, I have no idea. Mercedes, obviously, with their EQ stuff, their EQ line, they're pushing forward faster than just about any other manufacturer into electrified products. So at some point, them having an SL or a convertible EV, I think is absolutely in the cards, though I don't know when. I also just want to point out the Tesla Roadster has existed before the current one that doesn't really exist yet. So I think that we've crossed the threshold of the EV convertible. Unless I'm missing something.
Well, I mean Tesla. There was the Roadster, right?
Yep.
Based on Lotus. I mean, I guess you could call that an EV convertible maybe by default, but I mean, it's in my mind, okay, it's based on Lotus. It's not quite the same. It's like after the fact, right?
Yeah, that gets into a slightly more complicated issue, which is the provenance of that car. Is it more Tesla or more Lotus? I would be generous enough to call that fully a Tesla car and a convertible and an electric vehicle. So. Great question, Gary. We'll see whether or not we have any
for sure
hot news hot off the presses about what Mercedes' next EV plan might be. But
in the meantime,
yeah, let's talk about this BMW that I just gave the keys back to.
And that's a an M340i xDrive, right?
That's right. Yeah. So the kind of middle child between the standard 3 Series. And an actual, M car. So this is essentially the M Sport package, with more power, like different drive modes, and obviously a lot of other sort of visual cues that this has got more performance to it. The car's really good. I mean, it's no lightweight, although the numbers seem shy, I guess, these days. It's a turbocharged inline 6-cylinder mild hybrid powertrain, making close to 382 horsepower, 368 pound-feet of torque, put to all 4 wheels. And in this case, actually extra interesting because it was wearing snow tires too. It was wearing Pirelli Soda Zeros.
Okay.
So a tiny bit of a different driving experience than you would get on the summer performance or all seasons that BMW might offer with this car. But really, I think interesting drive, a really great representation, I think, of what BMW is doing with the 3 Series right now. Now, maybe not the 3 Series, the idea of a 3 Series that we all grew up longing after and thinking of as the kind of paragon of sports sedans, right? BMW has moved into a little bit of a weird place.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit of a weird place, but I mean, I still think in a large part, a lot of people see that as the benchmark. And I mean, especially a vehicle like this, people that aren't really interested in the really big grill. I mean, what do you think, Seth? Would this satisfy most BMW enthusiasts over an M with the 382 horsepower engine?
That's a really good question. I would say it's definitely not going to scratch the itch for an M car if that's what you're looking for. So from a performance driving standpoint, the car has got subtle and really confident handling, right? So it's delivering just very little feedback at this point, although that's not unique to BMW, but it's a little disappointing. But like control by the steering is exceptional. Like handling overall is exceptional. Body manners, like body control, are really great. The drive modes make a large difference in terms of the throttle mapping and the throttle response that you're getting. So if you're putting it into sport mode, you really are feeling a lot stronger acceleration, especially from speed, like on the highway and things like that. So it is a really quick car. I think I don't have this noted, so I can't remember if it came from BMW or if it came from an estimate from Car and Driver or somebody else who's doing instrumented testing. But the 0 to 60 on this car is something like 4.1 seconds, right? So we're not talking about.
I mean, that's
yeah.
You're right. People kind of gloss over. Oh, it doesn't do 60 in like 2 seconds. Well, 0 to 60 in 5 seconds is fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it's fast on paper these days, but when you're in the car, yeah, that's fast. So 0 to 60 in 4.1, yeah, terrifically quick. I am curious to know how that feels on snow tires though, because I know snow tires, when you're not in snow, you get a lot of wiggle just because you have so many individual blocks of tread there on the tires. Well, I mean, was that really noticeable here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not, I'm not a tire tester, right? So it's not like I have I didn't have experience with the car on performance tires, like back to back with the snow tires, which is what I would need to be able to feel a giant difference. I will say this, like I had it on a couple of good runs on a curvy road around my house, nothing like a racetrack. Did it feel like there's no issue with like grip on turn in, especially at the speeds that I'm going at? It feels pretty soft, right? It feels a little bit softer than I would expect. And there's a tiny bit more tire noise than I would expect. But overall, the stuff that I think you might be able to notice, for in a vehicle like this, wearing a set of snow tires would be mostly NVH stuff, and there wasn't a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So I actually think whether it's a credit to BMW or a credit to Pirelli, the combination of the two was actually still really fun to drive, and and plenty of performance. So. Okay. Generally speaking, I was very, pleased with it. So, Gary also mentioned the looks like nice second row headroom. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think the measure for me these days is always, can I put my 2 kids back there, right, in car seats? And the answer is yeah. Like there's no big issue with me being able to fit a rear facing and a front facing car seat in the rear seat, and then also sit and drive comfortably myself at 6'5" tall. So like good news there, I think, for other people who might be thinking about using this and they have a small family, or occasionally need to put kids in it. I think that you could definitely do that. This wouldn't be the car that I would pick to do a long road trip with my wife and my 2 small kids for a lot of reasons, but overall I do think it's pretty capacious inside.
It's probably worth noting. I'm not sure, Seth, if your kids are taller than me yet. so we're coming at this from 2 very different perspectives. Yeah. I am not 6'5". I'm actually 5'6". If you flip it around, that's actually a nice switch. But I mean, I think you have very qualified insight there because of your height that I think a lot of people will miss. So, um, it's interesting that you say you don't think you would take it on a long road trip, though. I mean, is it a
Well,
space issue?
yeah, I would. And in fact, I did. I took this on a longish road trip. I basically got in it and drove north of Port Huron in Michigan. So it's a roughly 2.5 2 hour drive from my house, for kind of a guys weekend, last weekend, right there and back. I would totally. It's an awesome road trip car on its own, right?
Mhm.
Even on the snows, even on Metro Detroit roads and highways, you could feel a lot, expansion joints and things like that. But for the most part, it was, it was taking the worst of the roads out of the driving experience, so it wasn't particularly loud or rough. The car is fast, so if you're driving it cross country or really long distances, I actually think it's a pretty awesome way to go. I was merely saying that, like, yeah, if you're putting two babies and two adults in it with all their stuff, you do. I think you would start to feel a little bit pinched,
Gotcha.
because I'm riding up a little closer to the steering wheel than I would want to regularly. So, um,
Gotcha. No.
yeah, but overall, a really fun experience. I think I like the car. I'm not. I wish I had better. Taken a little bit longer, but maybe if Kyle pivots to the video that's got the interior stuff, I'm curious, Chris, if anything stands out to you. I'll just say that, so this car was 68,000 and a half dollars, like, by the as it sits right here
Mhm.
with the Shadowline options package. It's got a premium pack on it, the M Sport package Pro, just, a lot of different additions on it too. I, it's weird. Although some of the touch points are really nice, overall the interior did not strike me as, maybe it was like just a tick below where I would expect BMW to be in this price class.
Well, we're looking at the interior video now,
Yep.
and I mean, the I haven't had a chance to see this car in person yet. Cars, they always look really good in their official press photos
Hmm.
because they're the photos are taken in such a mannered way. We're presenting it as best we can. The first thing that stood out to me was just the really wide, the long digital displays
Yep.
that almost, it looks very kind of tacked on, honestly.
Yeah.
In this video, it's just like, hey, we designed this great dash. Oh wait, we forgot the displays. Well, let's just put this long rectangular display here. Just give me a little bit of glue. We'll stick it right here. It
Yeah, I
doesn't
think
look like it's integrated that well.
it's sort of floating a little bit. So I get, maybe you'd have a little bit of a different vibe if you were in the car,
Yeah.
sort of experiencing it firsthand. But I don't think that you're wrong either. So this is BMW as kind of a curved display.
Hmm.
There's not a huge curve to it, so it's hard to see from this video and from photos. But there's a little bit of an angle to it, which is nice because it does create kind of a cockpit feel. It stays low in your, out of your sight line all the time when you're driving and just looking straight ahead, which I think is great. But yeah, I get that. If for people who don't like that sort of monolithic style sitting up high infotainment screen, this might bum you out a little bit. I will say that, like, the screen itself is really beautiful. The resolution is great. The response time is great. Wireless CarPlay, which is awesome. I also used all the baked-in features a little bit, which worked perfectly well too. Um, and I actually don't hate the digital instrument cluster, which is usually kind of a pain point for me, but I
Hmm.
like this one a little bit more, mostly because it's not aping the it's not pretending to be a mechanical one that just happens to be digital.
Okay.
They've done, like, it's very clearly digital. The gauges, as you can see, are, kind of like go up and down as opposed to like in circles as if they're being turned by a gear. And I just think that if you're going to go fully digital with your instruments, do something different. Don't pretend it's a clock,
Right.
right?
That's kind of the whole point. We don't really want to go with this older style. I will offer this too. I mean, just looking at it here in the video, um, a, a lot of the surfaces look a little plasticky. Is it just the way the video is coming out?
No, I don't think that you're wrong there. And yeah, the resolution isn't awesome, but I think that the trim pieces they feel nice for the most part. And I think anything silver that you're seeing has got kind of a matte finish to it. It does, either it is actual metal or feels,
Okay.
like real metal. So it's probably just not photographing particularly well. But now that where you start to see it fall away, the quality or perceived quality fall away is kind of down below the waterline, right below the window line, there's more, maybe less than luxury grade black plastics,
Mhm.
and or leather-like surfaces that aren't they're not bad. They're just not super nice,
Well,
right? So
in your take, is it living up to the price tag on that front?
I think I have to still recalibrate a little bit, because when I see $68,000, I think like that it should be, borderline something special. The reality is, that's not a massive amount these days for a
That's
car in
not
this
even a fully
class.
loaded F-150.
Right. So, I feel a little bit better about like the MSRP on it is 56 grand, which is, 10,000 more than like what the average person pays on it for a car these days.
Mhm.
Um, so I feel I think they're in the pocket. I think that they've got the balance of quality and price pretty good for a luxury product. I guess my point is, if somebody has always dreamed of driving a 3 Series and they've never owned one before, and they go into the BMW dealership, and sit in this car, I don't know that they're going to be immediately blown away by like the over engineering or quality of the stuff that they're touching and interacting with. So,
Gotcha. A quick point
um,
that Gary mentions here that we can talk about looks to have a nice amount of buttons for daily tasks. I know that it feels like recently, especially just in general news, not just in our automotive sense here. There's been a question of, okay, do we have too many features relegated into touch screens? Do we
mhm.
need to bring back some more tactile buttons features? How is that lining up for you on this? Because compared to like some of the Mercedes models where it's just like screens and that's pretty much it, we do see a lot of tactile controls here.
Yeah, I will say for the most part, I think that they got the balance right here, right? I barely used the iDrive controller, the
Mhm.
rotary controller at all. I did use there's a physical volume knob. I use that all the time, and I used there's some buttons just forward of the rotary controller too, that are sort of hotkeys, for specific tasks. And the home button there can be useful just to tap really quick to get you back, especially when you're driving. Um, but mostly I use the touchscreen, right? So,
Mhm.
I didn't have there's nothing that stood out as being particularly strange. I didn't love that the only way to adjust the heated seats is through, like a couple of menus deep in touchscreen world.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not awful, not horrible, and it's nice that you can adjust them. But I don't know if you can see it, like when as it's scrolling, there's a physical button on the center spoke of the steering wheel for the heated steering wheel, but not for the seats. So, it's probably a packaging thing. It's a little bit strange, but it didn't really bum me out. So,
Interesting. Just saying, my 20-year-old Subaru has just a simple switch for heated seats.
a little bit easier, yeah.
Are you listening, BMW?
Um,
Well,
well,
it's sorry, I'm used to driving on rambling about cars. I got to step back and let Seth drive here
no,
on Happy Hour.
No, you're all good. You're all good. I was just, we're probably doing the same thing. We've got, actually, luckily, we had, because last week we did a podcast where we talked about all of our favorite cars
Yep,
to drive over the course of the year.
that
So
was a
I
good
didn't
one.
talk about the truck that I was in last week, which was really fun and actually totally deserving of a spot on the happy hour. The 2022 Ram 1500 TRX, in this case, the crew cab version of it. So,
Speaking of expensive pickup trucks,
exactly. Yeah. And all-wheel drive performance, if you will. Yeah, so this is the, Hellcat engined Ram TRX that is, the TLDR version of this is absolutely lives up to the billing. Kind of crazy fast, really rumbly, super loud, incredibly in your face, in terms of like the vibe that you're getting, especially in this red paint. To your point, Chris, really expensive. Although we need to circle back to this because it doesn't necessarily have to be. The one that I was
right?
driving as it's at here has got it's just over $100,000, so $100,580. That buys you a lot of different. I've got a bunch of optional equipment, including the big one is the TRX Level 2 equipment group, which is 10 grand, which gives you a lot of like great creature comforts. You've got leather
Mhm.
seats, you've got vented front seats. As I'm looking down here, um, a really nice, essentially you're getting a lot of technology and a lot of comfort and convenience features packed into the truck. That will be important when we're looking at comparison tests with other very relevant high power trucks. But mostly what you're getting, the heart of what you're getting, is a truck with a lot of off-road capability and a motor that makes 702 horsepower,
Yeah,
right?
right. That was, I mean, that was going to be kind of my first question. I mean, it's a big truck. It's a big truck, even in like the heavy duty realm. Never mind that this is still technically a 1500.
Yeah.
Does it feel that big when you're behind the wheel?
Yes, it absolutely does. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's, listen, if you're somebody who drives, I have another pickup truck today. I test them fairly frequently, but if you're somebody who's in a full size pickup truck day in and day out, you're probably only going to feel like this is, a little larger than whatever your daily driver is. But because I'm not, maybe there's a little bit more of an adjustment period. But man, it's really, again, like, just to hit it really hard today. I'm very tall. I always curse things like powered running boards because they tend to be very inconveniently located for somebody with legs as long as mine. I would almost say that this thing needed more running boards because it's up so high. It's running such big tires, and like a lift, I guess, if you will. So getting into and out of it is tough. It was really difficult for like my 3-year-old who can like climb into and out of anything to like scramble up into it. So it's not a convenient height for most people. I would say honestly, unless you're about my size, unless you're 6'5" or taller, or just happen to have really long legs, like, this is going to be one that you need a strategy for getting in and
Yeah,
out
just
of it a
say
little
it,
bit.
Seth. I need a step ladder to get in. It's all right.
You need maybe one of those little kitchen steps, just so that you can
Just
reach the
just
top shelf.
yeah, just pull it out, fold it down. We'll just keep it in the back. I mean that's actually a good point that you make there, because it's when people are talking about TRX, they're not talking about what it's like to get in and out of it. They're talking about, okay, this thing is massive. It's loud. It's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that could? I mean, would that be something that might get to people after a while if they want to get one of these for a daily driver? If you're not Seth sized.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there are a lot of issues, that you would, yeah, that if you're buying a truck at, even close to this price point or a top trim level, you're getting more amenities that make it like easier to drive for a wider range of drivers. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are, like much shorter than me who could handle it with no problem. It's not like you really need a ladder to get in and out. But I think it would be a pain after a while.
Mhm.
It'd be something that you would think about a little bit more. You brought up the noise, Chris, and Gary said, "Did my neighbors forgive me?" And then mentions for an early morning cold start. Funny point, Gary. I actually didn't. My neighbors didn't say anything to me at all, although it is loud. And it was a really cold week that we have it, and I don't have a garage, so it was sitting in the driveway overnight, and it has remote start. And usually, I don't even think about it when I'm, warming up a vehicle for a few minutes before I get into it. With this one, I definitely did because I could hear it from my kitchen, like, once it started. Um, so the neighbors didn't care, but just the other day, I was picking up the kids from daycare, and a woman who I'd seen before but never met asked me if I was the guy. She wait, are you? Sorry, she said, "Are you the guy who's driving that big red truck?" And I said, "Yes, I have been. It's not mine."
I looked at you qualified. It's not mine.
Well, again, I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is like kind of a grown up hippie enclave from the '60s, and it's not like that common to see. What's the term for the huge trucks and SUVs? The sort of, brodozer. It's not
A
like
bro dozer.
this is not a place where you see a ton of brodozers. And so I kind of thought the woman was going to be, I don't know, like, have something to say about it. The point that she made was, she was like, "I thought it was crazy. We didn't know what it was. And you'd turn the lights on." And I guess she was putting the kids in the car, and it's up so high. She was like, "The lights are so bright. They were just blinding me as I was trying to put the kids in the car. And I wanted to know if they were like some sort of special kind of headlights." So I did hear some notes from some people that I didn't have, just because of the overall kind of like size and vibe of the TRX, but no issues with the sound. Um,
No issues with the sound. Now, see, again, because since I'm not on here regularly, I have to give a little bit of comparison. I have a very loud aftermarket exhaust on my Mustang sitting in the garage. So anything that's stock these days is kind of lost on me at this point.
Yeah,
Which is why, I mean, I guess, because I know a lot of people talk about the noise, and I guess I just struggle with it a little bit. It's like, I mean, is it really that loud? Is it, I
very
mean,
loud.
wow, okay.
It's very loud. I mean, it's not. It would. I'd be great. I'd be curious to hear your feedback. But like to me, it does sound like an aftermarket exhaust, and I don't
Okay.
know whether or not they've worked with, a company like Borla or something like that to create more of an exhaust sound. But we all know that like that is kind of in the DNA of high performance Mopar
Oh,
products as
sure.
well, right? Like getting the vibe right. Here's this is why I noticed it, Chris. Because I'd driven a couple of months ago I did the first drive of the Ford Raptor R, right? And we are actually working on we're putting together a comparison test for those two. So
Mhm.
stay tuned for that, you guys. It's going to be a little bit, but we are really excited to bring like a written and video comparison test of those two trucks, because they do match up really nicely, obviously. The first thing that I thought about when I got in, like that first cold morning, to Gary's point, was, man, it really would be nice to have the Ford feature, like the active exhaust, because they have, I can't remember what they call it, but they have essentially a kind of a stealth mode.
Mhm.
So you can run the truck with, and it's really quiet. We pulled out of really early in the morning on that Ford program, and it was amazing how little noise 8 of these Raptor Rs were making as we were pulled out, because they were all in quiet mode, right?
Interesting.
On the other hand, if you're really into that sound, I would say that when you're really gunning it, the the TRX sounds way better. You've got that supercharger whine that's just kind of amazing. It's all attitude, right? It's all snarl. Um, so there are lots of reasons to recommend both of those trucks, and they're very comparable. But I would say if you're somebody who likes that, if that sound really gets you going of a massive V8, I think that you're probably going to be a little bit more aligned with the TRX than with the Raptor R. So
Well, how does it feel as like I mean, sound aside, and climbing in aside, how does it feel as a daily driver? Because I imagine there are a lot of people that want one of these that could probably afford one, but that's going to be like their only vehicle. I mean, would this serve as a daily driver?
yeah, I mean, I think that you have to be, I think where you live and where I live, we're both in Michigan, but if you're anywhere in the Midwest, you're not in a dense urban area. I think that it could be a daily driver in terms of, just the actual ability. It's not like it's challenging. It is still a factory built truck, right?
Mhm.
So like it goes, stops and turns actually quite well. And you could absolutely manage it in, parking lots and things like that. There's so many cameras around it. Even I've got a reasonably small driveway and often have a lot of cars in it. Like I'm it's no problem to back it in, or snug it right up against the car that's in front of it because of all the cameras. That stuff makes it really easy. The real question to me would be, is it something that you would want to commute in, because it's so, forget about the engine sound. Like it's got a lot of wind noise. It's got a lot of tire roar.
Ah, okay.
It's just making noise all the time. So not to mention what you're paying for every mile that you're driving, because the fuel economy is not great. So I don't know. I think that in that category, again, I'd want to look at it a little bit more deeply, but my gut says that the Ford is probably a better truck to daily drive than the Raptor, uh, everything else being equal. Now, what they do off road in their kind of intended environments when you're really like killing it and on the throttle is an important question, and one that I can't answer exactly right now. But yeah, I think the daily driving thing would probably, I'd lean Raptor R and away from TRX. So
Interesting. Interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really have much else to add on that. I've seen the Raptors up close. Just to let everybody know, I'm not in the general rotation for media vehicles, so I'm not up to speed on all of the more modern vehicles. I have seen a lot of the Raptors up close. Actually, a friend of mine did he was the head of a Raptor club a while ago,
oh, neat. Yeah.
and they would do stuff. In fact, I think it's still going on, coming up soon in the Upper Peninsula, where they're like bombing down. I mean, it's not actual snowmobile trails because that would be terrible for the snowmobilers. But
Right.
I mean, they did a thing called Snowball.
Yeah.
And it's like they're taking their Raptors out on these I mean, using them basically like they were intended to be used. I'd be really curious to see how the TRX works in a situation like that. I'm assuming it would be just be killer all the way around.
Yeah, we had for the Raptor R program, we were out at Silver Lake Sand Dunes on the west side of Michigan, on the Lake Michigan shore, and that truck was absolutely just monstrous, jumping stuff, climbing anything, going through water, going through deep wet sand, and still being incredibly quick in everything that it did. I have full faith and confidence that the Ram would do that stuff very well, and it comes down to sort of a real subtle distinction between the two when you're pushing up. But it sure is like, it's crazy, and it's not exactly my preferred cup of tea. But I think that it's kind of fun where we live in a world where we have two 700 horsepower trucks that we can compare directly.
Well, we live in a world with two 700 horsepower trucks from the factory.
Exactly. Yes.
Like
exactly.
Built that way, just turnkey, ready to go. Yeah, it's a very interesting and a very cool time. Yeah, we'll see how it transmits to electric power.
I have a feeling that the EV stuff is going to be even more bonkers when it finally starts rolling our way. Certainly even early returns from Rivian are pretty exciting. So well, listen, I want to touch quickly, Chris. We had a couple of comments from
Yes.
Bobby and from EKG Canadian Enthusiasts, who we see fairly frequently. Hello, well, thanks for coming back, you guys. I'm afraid I think you came in a little bit late. And you missed the fact that we lost Jeff Perez for the day. Jeff was gonna be on to talk Mercedes-AMG SL 55. And so we missed that part of it. Maybe we can come back with that. Maybe Jeff can touch on that next time. But the questions about the LC 500 as a comparison, probably pretty legit. Like, it's always an interesting question. Like, this is the 911 competes with everything in that space, but it's also staggered in a way that is very competitive, for very niche audiences. I think the LC 500 probably fits in there to a certain extent in terms of power, kind of straight line performance, power, and price tag. Whether or not they're directly comparable these days in terms of overall amenities and kind of the value you're getting, I'm not sure. It's a great question, but I don't know the answer. So
great question. And I mean, I'll just say I am completely smitten with the SL.
Beautiful.
There isn't anything I don't like about that car.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I think that they've done some real work. Kind of, the SL has always been a funny car, right? Like, before this new one, the SL was always, everyone that I drove felt very special, but also kind of like a modern antique, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I feel like it wasn't just like left to just kind of simmer for a little while. I mean, Mercedes. I mean, they were working on it over the years, but it didn't really feel like necessarily as much of a priority,
right?
And I think this one feels more like a priority. Like, okay, we're gonna put our heart and soul into this one, just looks wise, power wise.
Yeah, they got one more, sort of ICE generation out of it anyways. And I think that they knew that they kind of owed it to that car, to the model, and to the fan base to do it right. So no worries, guys. We apologize for a little bit of the bait and switch for putting that on the front. But again, I had some unforeseen issues. We'll try and get Jeff on to talk about that again, maybe as early as next week. So cool. In the meantime, Chris, thanks so much for being able to hop on.
No, always a pleasure to jump in. Go listen to Rambling About Cars. That's the other podcast that we do. I gotta do the plug, man. I gotta do the plug.
No, absolutely. Did the new episode just dropped too, right?
New episode just dropped today. We're on Motor One Podcast on YouTube. It's slightly different YouTube channel. Just dropped today. It's also on streaming audio, Spotify, Google, Apple, all that. Talking about the new Corvette E-Ray, talking about the new Aston Martin DBS 770 Ultimates, Mustang Mach-E hearse, and limo from the same company.
What?
I got a shout out to our news guru Adrian, who came up with like the best headline ever. It's something that was like, company builds Mustang Mach-E for partying until you can't party anymore, right? It's like going from limo to her. So yeah, rambling about cars. Always
Amazing.
happy to jump on the happy hour. It's Friday. Let's go out and have some fun for the weekend.
All right. I certainly plan on it. Everybody watching, thank you for joining. Thank you for the questions and comments. As ever, if you have something that you'd like to know that we didn't answer on air, you're seeing this after the fact, let us know and we'll jump on to YouTube comments to try and get you an answer. And join us again next Friday. I keep saying this. Eventually, soon, there's going to be a major Motor1.com podcast brain trust meeting coming up, and then eventually this one is going to get moved to a more convenient spot so that we can meet out the podcast entertainment better across the week. So I don't know exactly when that's happening. Doesn't matter. Go to Motor1.com. We'll let you know. We'll message.
Get them all.
Yeah, and check out Rambling About Cars for sure. Check out the Inside EVs podcast as well. We're doing a lot of good stuff in a podcast format these days, and way more to come in 2023. All right, now we're way over.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again.